topic number 2. Let's talk about the top 25 QB list. That's published. It was published Wednesday. This podcast will be published Wednesday as well. It's an annual summer list. Last year you had Hendon Hooker at number 5. Good call right there. Kind of ahead of the game. In 2021, I think you had Spencer Rattler at number 1, and he didn't survive the season, although he got beat out by a pretty good quarterback right there. I got some Trocchi trivia before we get into this year's list. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So getting ready for this podcast, you sent me your I think your 2020 top 25, your 2021, your 2022. All right. This could be a Bender trivia question, right? I'm going on Will Bender's 2020 QB list, May of 2020. There are 4 players on the May 2020 list that are on your May 2023 list. Can you name those 4 players?
Well, I know at least 2 right off the top of my head because I put it in the article. I was like, because I was actually scanning through it. I know a couple of them.
Who has lived on for 4 years that this on your summer list of quarterbacks to watch. So so let's get into this. And with all the transferring going on, this has got to be getting harder and harder each summer. No,
it is, but it's fun to do. Everybody always asks, what's your methodology? I mean, some of it, you and I had you send 25. I put my 25. There's 11 of them transferred, and that's this year. There's 11 have transferred overall, and I think the good news is there's only 2 first-time transfers, Devin, Leary, and Sam Hartman. So I just anticipate that every year we do this, 40% of the guys are going to be first-time or transfer quarterbacks, which is wild, but it's just part of the game. I think one of the debates that you and I had, the hard part for me is like kind of projecting forward and really going in on that. I mean, Ohio State's quarterback, you could just slot in at a particular spot each year. A couple of years ago, we had CJ Stroud 18 and probably should have went higher. Same with Bryce Young. I think we had him 11. He won the Heisman Trophy, but it's like, it's a system quarterback that's in a system that's on the best team in college football. So those are hard. We talked about Dante Moore and Shadur Sanders and Connor Weigman, who I really like that didn't make the list. Drew Aller's another one that didn't even make the list, but I think it's just because we need to see more. And, that speaks to the fact that those guys didn't make the list, shows how loaded this list really is.
Yeah. And so you got Caleb Williams at number 1, Drake May at number 2. Gap between 1 and 2, not huge, right? I mean, I heard someone talk about Drake May. If he was in the draft this year, he might have gone number 1 in the NFL draft this year. Do you agree with that?
He would have been in the discussion. I mean, because he has the size, the mobility, the ability to read the field. In talking to the people at North Carolina, he loves Aaron Rodgers. So he emulates that game a little bit, and just to me, it's his ability to see the field and kind of the fear. It's almost like and I know we talk about the Packers a lot because I love him. His style is a cross between Rodgers and Favre because he plays with, Mac had to tell him a little bit last year, like, you need to get down. You can't put your shoulder down. We need you in the game. So he's got that kind of attitude about him. So definitely in the discussion for 1, but I'll be honest. I mean, we just default setting Caleb Williams 1. It was more of a debate with me, Drake May, and Michael Penix, who should be number 2 as far as a college quarterback goes, because Michael Penix led the nation in total yards last year.
He did, and he's got top receivers back this year. Washington definitely is going to compete for the Pac-12 championship, going to compete for a playoff spot, and they're going to go as far as Penix can take them, and Penix took them pretty far last year.
Yeah, and again, another guy. So those 3 kind of were separate from everybody else. Then I'd say the next tier was the guys that was 4 to 8. Jaden Daniels, Jordan Travis, they'll play each other 6 and 7. That'll be a really good matchup in week 1.
16 weeks till that game, Bill. 16.
Well, good. I can wait, because that gives me time to get all these stories done. If I can't get them done in 16 weeks, we got a problem. Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy was another one that I kicked around well, should I put McCarthy over him? But I think Bo Nix's production last year, he is one of the guys on that Trocchi trivia. I think we'll get to it, but I think Bo Nix has been around long enough that I've had him on this list. Had him on this list at least 4 times. So, yeah. So it again, it's fun, but I think through all the transfer quarterbacks, and then there's guys like Grayson McCall that's been around forever, and he stayed in the same place. I think I've had him. He's almost reserved his own spot between 5 and 13 every year.
Yeah, he had that outstanding season. The Coastal lost a ton of players last year. They were pretty inexperienced. He wasn't able to put up the same numbers as he had the previous year. I'm not sure people understood the amount of good players they were losing. Because hey, Grayson's back. They won a bunch of games last year. I'm sure they're going to be good again. And they were, but he wasn't able to be quite as productive as he was the year before. He comes back again. They have a little more experience. They lost their head coach, so we'll see what happens there with Grayson. One more year running it back at Coastal Carolina. Guy I liked, we submitted our top 25 list. You took a look at mine, and I looked at yours. I like Riley Leonard at Duke. Had him. I did the ACC breakdown. I think I had him 4th in the conference. We had Sam Hartman because we included Notre Dame in the ACC. I had Hartman, Jordan Travis, and Drake May ahead of him. But I picked him ahead of Cade Klubnik. And he had a terrific season last year. He really, he completed 64% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And he was the league's number 1 rushing quarterback. He had 699 yards on the ground and 13 more touchdowns there. Their entire offense is back for this year. They averaged 33 points a game last year, and they won 9 games. So, so I've said, the helmets still say Duke on them, but they could still really be really, really good on offense again. And I think it starts with Leonard.
Yeah, we have a Duke quarterback and a Kentucky quarterback ranked back-to-back. Who knew? With Riley Leonard and the numbers he was able to put up. I'm not going to call him a lightweight Drake May, but a similar kind of player. Maybe not the same passing skills and maybe runs a little more, but a very good, prolific quarterback. Had a huge game against North Carolina last year that we all remember. And back-to-back with Devin Leary, who is kind of the mystery quarterback to me because it's less than like Sam Hartman and Notre Dame. I just feel like he's going to be fine. He'll be good. I don't know if it's going to be Wake Forest numbers good, but he'll be good. Leary's more of a mystery because we've seen him very good. 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 2021 versus last year where injuries, inconsistent, didn't go well. Still throws the ball downfield incredibly well. And with Liam Cohen and Kentucky, they could have a breakout season. And wouldn't surprise me if he puts up Will Levis type stats. So I think Devin Leary is very interesting in that spot.
Yeah, Leary was an interesting guy. He took a step back last year, just like Brendan Armstrong was another guy who came into the year near the top of the ACC rankings, you would say, among quarterbacks. He took a big step back too. And then he's actually back this year at NC State, replacing Leary. So we'll see if he can, regain his footing. He's reunited with his offensive coordinator, who he had when he had so much success at Virginia. So I don't know if that combo will boost Brendan Armstrong back up to where he was 2 years ago or whatever. But Larry's a guy that showed a ton 2 years ago. It's still in there somewhere. So and Kentucky is excited to have Cohen back as the offensive coordinator.
We are going to get the most pushback about Joe Milton. And I know you had him a little lower than I did. I had him at 16. We have him at 16. And you could make the case that Joe Milton could win the Heisman Trophy.
Ooh.
And you could also make the case that he will be an undrafted free agent that maybe doesn't play in the NFL outside of a practice squad. And that's what makes him so intriguing, because what it comes down to is the arm strength. I mean, he can throw the ball forever, and he throws rockets, and he's been doing this since he was a Michigan quarterback and had the debut against Minnesota when we were dropping Cam Newton comparisons. but it's going to come down to the accuracy. You mentioned Hendon Hooker at the top. Hendon Hooker was great at Tennessee because he fit into Josh Heupel's system and he completed 70% of his passes. If Milton is around 65 to 70%, there won't be a ton of drop off, but I don't know. Is he a pitcher or is he you know what I mean? Is he a fastball pitcher or does he throw? And we're going to find out which one it is.
Well, I mean, Heupel's offense gets people open.
Right.
You can get a guy who's not super accurate completions because no one solved this offense yet. You know, maybe they will in year 2, but they were, I mean, people were running free all day last year, and that was, you know, obviously part of Hooker's success as well.
Yeah, and so he's the one that I anticipate will get the most pushback. Why don't you have Joe Milton higher? Why don't you have him higher than? Well, we don't have him higher than Jaden Daniels, and we don't have him higher than a Spencer Rattler, who, you know, came on really hard at the end of last year. He had a really good last 3-game stretch where he had 364 yards per game in those last 3 games. Another one I like a lot, and I know I ripped on that team a lot last year, is Kansas and Jalen Daniels. I think he's pretty phenomenal, and he's coming off the bowl game performance. He got hurt, and you know he's a sleepy pick in there that they definitely have a good season. I think he'll continue to develop with Lance Leopold, put up good numbers. It's kind of funny. We have him ranked back to back with KJ Jefferson. Those are the two that played that ridiculous Liberty Bowl last year and put up those big numbers. So, you know, there's so many talented, fun quarterbacks on here. And like I said, when I started this list, I had 38 names. So I was already upset because I came to you. I was like, well, that means 13 of these guys aren't going to be on the list. So and that includes Curtis Rourke from Ohio University, who is another talented Group of 5 quarterback. Austin Reed, Western Kentucky. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks that we didn't squeeze on here that, yeah, if they want to come at me and say you're wrong, I'll probably say at the end of the year, I'll probably be saying you're right.
So G5, yeah, you just real quick, we got Grayson McCall on there, and then Frank Harris, UTSA at 22, and Michael Pratt, Tulane at 24. What got those guys on? Got those guys on over the other guys you just mentioned?
Yeah, Pratt obviously coming off the Cotton Bowl. They do have a coordinator switch, very efficient. You know, kind of like a Riley Leonard, runs the ball a little bit as well. Good numbers. Frank Harris does it all for UTSA, and he's been doing it all for 3 years. I know they lost the bowl game, and he didn't play particularly well in that, but I mean, he just fits in Jeff Traylor's offense. He's thrown just 21 picks the last 3 seasons, and McCall, I love Grayson McCall. You know, you wrote the feature on him. I know it's been ups and downs at Coastal. There was talk about him maybe going to a Power 5 school, but I've liked his game because, you know, what I always tell you, what do I look for? Completion percentage up around 70, throws a lot of touchdowns, can run a little bit, doesn't throw picks, and is a leader that everybody likes. So Grayson McCall pretty much checks all of those boxes at Coastal, and you know, he's another veteran. I think he's also going to be part of this trivia question answer. We'll see at the end.
Yeah, no, he was very well respected last year. I think people within that program are pulling for him to make the NFL. You know, I went to the game here at Georgia State, and, you know, Coastal won a ton of games in 2020 during a pandemic year in 2021. And they, you know, beat Georgia State, and they have those, you know, especially they have all those crazy celebrations in the locker room and all that stuff. And, you know, Grayson has been around for a lot of those at this point. But he was right in the middle of it, right after just an ordinary victory over Georgia State, still with the same enthusiasm and excitement. And, you know, so you're right about the leadership qualities of him. And yeah, I'm pulling for him too. Hope he puts up a big year and finds his way onto an NFL roster at some point. So let's move on, unless you got anyone else you want to talk about.
No, I mean, it's a good list, and obviously check it out. And I know it peaks during the season. So I know, like, people like to say, I told you so. I've been known to do that a time or two. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some things that'll bite at the end of the year, and I'm sure there's some things we'll look back, but hey, we got that one right. And that's what these lists are all about.
Right.